All right, so we're going to take a quick look at a couple of the homework problems. These are from page 121. This is section 2.4. So first we'll look at 2D here. 2D, we're trying to simplify the division of fractions here, right? So we have x squared, I'm just going to rewrite this here, x squared minus 1 divided by x minus 2, all divided by x plus 1 divided by 12 minus 6x. So the very first step that we need to accomplish here is we need to factor. We need to factor any parts of these fractions that we're able to. Now if I look at the four parts, I see if I label them a as the numerator of my first fraction, b as the denominator of my first fraction, and then c and d. If I label them like that, it looks like the only one that can be factored is part a, right? So I see x squared minus 1. That's a difference of squares. So we'll try and factor that difference of squares here. I'm not going to go into great detail how we factor that. If you're struggling there, you can look at the other videos. We find it equals x minus 1, x plus 1, all divided by x minus 2 divided by x plus 1. Now, my mind likes to put brackets around these. You definitely do not need to put brackets around these, but if you prefer it, absolutely go ahead. Now, we're at this stage. Everything is fully factored. Before we switch into our reciprocal, definitely before we perform any cancellations, we need to state any restrictions. And when we're stating restrictions, remember that we need to state restrictions on C, D, and B. Those are the parts of the fractions that are not allowed to equal 0, or else we're dividing by 0 at some point. So we need to take a look at the factors in all of those positions. Well, first, I'm going to look at the first factor, that's x minus 2. And I know I can't allow that to equal 0. I can rearrange and find that x cannot equal 2. Next, I'll look in the C position. We'll call that restriction number 1. Restriction number 2, x plus 1 cannot equal 0. I can rearrange this so that x cannot equal negative 1. And lastly, restriction 3 here, 12 minus 6x cannot equal 0. I can rearrange this so I can add, I can subtract, let's add 6x to both sides, leaving me with 12 cannot equal 6x. I can divide both sides by 6, telling me that x cannot equal 12 divided by 6. 12 divided by 6 is 2. So there's my third restriction, x cannot equal 2. In fact, I find that these two are the same. Well, these are the same. That's weird. I used different factors when I was breaking them out. Looks like we just missed one that we could factor here if there's a common factor. So if we were to common factor that, we should find the same factor that we found in position 1. But either way, we have here, there's no need for this final restriction since it looks the exact same as our first restriction we were working on. So I'll rewrite this in a fully factored form. X minus 1, x, you know what, let's write it up here. We can factor out a negative 6. Leaving us with x minus 2. If you're confused about that, try it out. Try common factoring out the negative 6 and see if it works for you. Now, from here, we can move forward. Okay, so we've performed our restrictions. That means now we're allowed to perform cancellations. We're going to start, before we perform any cancellations, we're going to switch this second fraction for its reciprocal and give us a multiplication sign in the middle instead of a division sign. So x minus 1, x plus 1, all divided by x minus 2 times, now let's change the color here so it's nice and obvious, times negative 6 by x minus 2. Again, this is here we're replacing it with its reciprocal, divided by x plus 1. Okay, now we're just multiplying fractions. We know how to multiply fractions. We put it all together into one fraction. So this can leave us with x minus 1, x plus 1, multiplied by negative 6, x minus 2, all divided by x minus 2, x plus 1. Remember, because we've already stated our restrictions, now we're allowed to perform cancellations. Any factors that appear in the numerator and denominator can be canceled out. So that's an x plus 1 there is twice. X minus 2 is there twice. So I can restate this, and I'm going to push my negative 6 factor to the front. Negative 6 times x minus 1 is my final answer. Because it's my final answer, I need to restate my restrictions. X is not allowed to equal negative 1 or 2. Perfect. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to work here on 4D. Let's move this down and see what we can accomplish here. So 4D, again, we're simplifying. We're stating any restrictions. This is where we're working right here. Well, if we are everything is already factored. And I know that because there are no, in any of these positions, there are no spots where there are multiple terms in the same position, right? There are no addition or subtraction signs working in there. So everything is fully factored, meaning I can grab any of the variables involved in these factors in my B, C, and D positions, and I can restrict them. So I'll start off with these restrictions, nice and easy. All of the factors that I find in there, it's just A and B. So A cannot equal 0 and B cannot equal 0. I don't care that there are squareds on some of them. At this point, when I'm finding my restrictions, I just look at the single factors, if you will. So now that I've performed that, I can start working forward. Okay, so I can replace my division sign with a multiplication sign. 3a squared b cubed divided by 2ab squared. Switching the division sign for multiplication sign. And then I'm changing this this second fraction for its reciprocal. So I change its numerator for the denominator and vice versa. 14a squared divided by 9a squared b. Perfect. Now that I've done this, again, I've already stated my restrictions. I can move forward. I know how to work with this. I'm going to start multiplying my numerators together. First, I'll start off with the coefficients. So 3 times 14 times a squared, so that's a to the power of 4, times b cubed. All divided by 2 times 9 times a cubed, b to the power of 3. Okay, perfect. We're moving forward. Again, we have already stated our restrictions. Since we've stated our restrictions, we can perform any cancellations. But before performing these cancellations, I'm going to try performing my division. So I can see 14 divided by 2, that's 7, and 9 divided by 3, that's 3. Perfect. Then I look at my cancellations. I see a to the power of 3 in the denominator. That will cancel out with 3 of them in the numerator. So my exponent goes from a 4 to a 1, and all of my b cubed terms cancel out, leaving me, I know that looks messy, but hopefully if you just wrote it, then you can follow it, leaving me with the 7 and then a to the power of 1. I don't really need that to the power of 1. I don't need to write that in because that's assumed if nothing's there. So 7a divided by, oops, crashed a bit there. 7a divided by 3 is my final answer. Since it's my final answer, I need to state my restrictions now. A and b cannot equal 0. I hope this helped.